It's the Ghost Files. We're here, episode one, the beginning of a new era. In the podcast world, I'm Dan Allison, the host per se. I'm here with my boy Divij. Divij, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well, or pretty good as well. Glad you could come on for the first episode. So for anyone just tuning in, or obviously tuning in for the first time, first episode. The Ghost Files is basically a podcast centered around my class, art class, class of 2021, Westford Academy, and we're going to be talking about our plans for the future since this is our last year, and a bunch of other stuff along the way. I thought for the first couple episodes I'll do some of my close friends, so we have some high quality content, and I thought Divij was the man for the job. So for anyone listening who doesn't know Divij, tell the people about yourself.
All right. As Kawhi once said, I'm a fun guy. Um, Especially around this time of year, that kind of is a perfect way to say it because my interest, when I'm at home, I'm watching Netflix or YouTube. But as the NBA season's starting, that kind of takes over my personality. It's probably really annoying, but all I'm doing is listening to podcasts. Maybe this one is getting added to the resume of podcasts. I'm listening to Wizards podcasts and reading articles. So,
I mean, yeah, that was perfectly said. I think obviously we have a very weird start time for the NBA season this year, December. But I think there's going to be a lot of sports talk on this podcast, even though it's not centered around sports. Something you brought up, you talked about Wizards podcast. Some people might not know this. You're actually a Wizards fan, even though being uh, a Patriots fan and growing up in New England. So, how do you want to explain that?
yeah, I don't know how it happened. It was just really natural. I was in middle school when I really became a Wizards fan, and it was because of John Wall, the once great Wizard,
Rip.
John Wall. I don't know. I just loved watching him, and I started watching Wizards games. The Celtics were kind of bummy at the time, so I enjoyed watching them. And ever since then, I just became a Wizards fan. Obviously, the Wizards versus Celtics rivalry was really good at the time, so I'd get a lot of shit for it. But
Yeah,
now we're on to a new team, Russell Westbrook.
it's true. Yeah, it's actually a kind of perfect timing. One of the biggest trades or moves for the Wizards in a long time just occurred. But yeah, I feel like growing up, obviously you're in middle school when you made that decision. I feel like there's kind of, if you're not rooting for a local team, there's a lot of like young kids can be very like influenced by the highlights they see or the flashy players, and John Wall was definitely one of those guys, still is one of those guys, even after the injuries, I think. But yeah, we can definitely dive into this or try to talk about this situation. Westbrook coming to the nation's capital and John Wall off to Houston. Um, what was your original thoughts?
It's hard to judge it from a basketball perspective because of all the emotion. Like it's hard to explain like how much John Wall means to Wizards fans because he's been the Wizards haven't won a lot. So when he came in as the number one pick, his home debut, he had 9 assists. I mean 9 steals, 13 assists, 26 points. Like from the beginning, people knew they had something special. He led us to a great series in the playoffs versus the Celtics, and he's also won the Community Assist Award a couple years ago because that's really what makes a community love him is just how much he does for them. A couple days ago, he was giving out meals, Thanksgiving turkeys. Even though he knew might be on his way out, he still does a lot. So it was hard from an emotional standpoint, but getting Russell Westbrook is super exciting. And I think he can really play a true one. And even though Beal played on ball a lot last year, he can be a really good two and adapt to who's around him. So I'm excited from a basketball standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said it in a text conversation a couple days ago. It was like you compared it to the Isaiah Thomas trade, but like probably double that since obviously IT meant a lot to Boston, but he wasn't in Boston as long as John Wall has been in Washington. So obviously the connection there, you don't really uh, want to give up a amazing homegrown guy, who came up on your team and kind of like grew there. But yeah, it's not like he left with nothing in return. Obviously, you have an amazing one of the top players in the league, Russell Westbrook. Obviously, people have their varying opinions. After he left OKC, he's been getting a lot more slack and criticism, but I still think there's upside there. Definitely, I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean he's an MVP. He's all NBA, and he has a lot of flaws. You know, one of the least efficient players, but everything he does well. I mean, walking triple double, like that makes up for it. And the Wizards have shooters to put around him, so I'm just counting down the days to see him play.
Yeah, I mean, we're only a few days out. Start of December right now. End of December, we'll be getting NBA basketball. So that's pretty amazing to say. For the non-sports listeners, let's try to maybe take a different turn here in the topics. So obviously, we're in the same class. We're classmates. Been classmates for a long time, and this year has been nothing short of kind of a wildfire, like not a dumpster fire in a way, because we're trying our best, or the school's trying their best. But so how do you think, or what are your thoughts of this school year? Basically halfway through our senior year.
You know what? I haven't minded it too much. I think what makes it hard is like the expectation. You know, it's like, oh, senior year, like you have all these activities that you're looking forward to, spirit rally, you know, that the time you throw the color everywhere. There's all these activities where you come together as a class like one last time, and it's really special. And I think me and you, like obviously everybody has their own opinion on it, but me and you, like we love the crowd, you know, we love
Yeah.
that energy. And the spirit rally, you know, everyone running out onto the field together, like that's special. So I'm still holding out hope for it, but I think the school has done a good job. I mean, obviously we're not in class together because you're pod A, I'm pod B, but I kind of like it. You know, we're at home half the time. You can kind of do your thing at home, take naps and everything. So we're doing our best, and also with the extra free time we have, you know, we're still going out there playing football, spike ball, everything. So I haven't been complaining too much. We're doing our best.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you said it probably the same way I'd say it. Westford's done a pretty good job if you look at surrounding towns that have kind of handled the situation worse. Westford's kind of kept the school system in a okay place as of right now. Obviously, the like you said, we're in different pods, so I don't actually get to go to school with you technically. Um, for the new guidelines of social distancing and staying safe. And yeah, obviously sporting events, spirit rallies, the first things to go in 2020. Um, and yeah, that crowd element is something that it sucks to lose, but I feel like you kind of just got to look at the upside, like what we got last year. We got a lot of great moments on basketball. We got to storm the court last year. The hockey team making the playoffs. So I feel like the takeaway from this year is definitely like don't look at what you lost and just don't take things for granted. Just like be appreciative of what you got.
Yeah, and I think also it kind of teaches you like last year, I wish I went to more things. I was there when we stormed the court. That was great. But I wish I went to even more basketball games, more football games, everything. But when they come back, you already know I'm gonna be there every
Yeah,
time.
exactly. No, I mean I think that's a really good point because I feel like growing like in the society of like kids our age, we like to blow things off. Like there's a lot of kids that think they're too cool for stuff. Like I mean, when's the last time we've gone to like a lot of kids went to a school dance? I feel like that's kind of like dying out because people are like, "Oh, I'll just hang out with my friends on the side." But now, like, we can't even have those, and it's like, damn, maybe I wish I went to that dance, or maybe I went to that football game instead of just staying home, you know. So, um,
Yeah,
so
I
where,
100% agree. Like,
yeah,
I use this quote in my one of my senior essays, the supplements for my college app. It's the quote is, "You only regret the things you don't do," and it's
exactly.
100% true. Because even everything you do, even if you don't end up how it go, like liking how it goes, it's a learning experience. So
Hmm.
you only regret what you don't do.
Exactly. Like you can't just waste time looking at, what has been lost. You kind of just have to keep mushing forward and adapt. Um, but yeah, so we're halfway through the year. We just kind of reflected on what has happened so far. But we still have a half to go, and a lot of decisions still to be made. Obviously, you haven't um, committed to a college yet. You're still in the process, like many people. I mean, it's only December, so there's a lot of decisions still to be made and a lot to go down. So, where is your head at in that process? Because I know senior years fill like full to the brim with college stress and all that.
Yeah, I I like I've done DECA in high school, so I did that, and I've done a couple of like business entrepreneurship type things outside of school. So that's kind of given me a little bit of direction. So I've been applying to business programs, and I think you're going to be happy to hear one of my top ones is Penn State.
Hey,
Yep,
that's dope.
I would love to go there. It's that like I'm applying to basically one small school, and the rest
Hmm.
are pretty huge because I love that like football game type atmosphere, having the school spirit. So Penn State is really up there. The whiteout game, everything, and it has a good business program. That's one of my top options. I also really like UT Austin. They've got
Hmm.
elite basketball, elite football, and I have a lot of family down in Texas, so I ended up touring that school in my sophomore year, and I love the campus, love the city. So
That's
that's a
dope.
bit of a reach. It's a really tough school to get into, but I would say that's my top option, and Penn State is also up there.
That's awesome to hear. Two uh, amazing schools. Obviously, I'm familiar with Penn State. A lot of my family went there, but also I've looked at Austin, and that's a awesome school as well. They actually have really good sports journalism, so I kind of took a deeper dive into that. But yeah, what you were talking about, you kind of applied to a lot of big schools. And from what I've heard, like that's kind of rare in a way. Like I feel like a lot of kids we know are kind of playing it like they're going to the local or like the smaller schools. They instead of going to like these big places, they kind of just want to be in like a more chill environment. While like me and you, we want those packed houses, those sold out crowds for football and basketball, and large environments to just feel the energy, which obviously we talked about for the WA football games. Um, so yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm applying to Babson just because it's an amazing business program. But I toured that a couple years ago, and I was walking around campus, and I was trying to picture myself there, and I was like, man, this is depressing. Like
Yeah, yeah,
2,000 people, like everybody there gets a business major. That's like the only thing they offer. It's like, oh, I can't do that.
yeah.
As good
No,
as the program is, like even if I got in, even if it was like the best educational opportunity, I just can't bring myself to do it.
exactly. I have a similar experience. I think it was Roger Williams. And this was a while ago. It might have been freshman year. But it was, I mean, very nice campus near the water, but very small. Like you can, couple walks up and down, and you're like, oh, that was it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if this is really like the college feel I'm looking for. So yeah, but also going off your list, Penn State, Austin, obviously those are two non-New England schools. Was that like a vocal point for you to like try to get out of New England, like see other parts of the country, or is that kind of just how like the cards were dealt?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. Like, I wouldn't mind being local. Obviously, a lot of people go to UMass Amherst. It's a great school, but even UMass Amherst, like I don't really want to go there just because I feel like, you know what, we worked hard in high school, and it's kind of rewarding to go somewhere where you feel like you've accomplished something. And if I'm going to Amherst, I feel like I'm following, that's where my brother goes. It kind of just feels
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's like what was meant to happen, and you haven't really gone somewhere. So yeah, most of my schools, like I applied to Ohio State, Illinois, University of Illinois, like they're all over the place. I applied to U Florida, so it's kind of all over the place. Wherever I get in, I'll look into like deeper, and I would like to travel. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's awesome because I feel like obviously we're in a great like neck of the country for schools. Obviously a lot of great options. You said Amherst. Obviously you go towards Boston, plenty of schools there. But I feel like a lot of kids go to regional schools just to like feel a sense of like being comfortable in a way. Like, oh, this is like familiar. Like I'm gonna know kids from Massachusetts or like Connecticut or whatever, like stuff that's familiar to me. And I feel like there's a sense of like this is supposed to be a time where you're supposed to like kind of reach out and like find yourself rather than like following just like this, like you said, like it would be very like ABC 1 2 3 to just go WA Amherst and then like stay in Mass, rather than kind of getting out of your comfort zone and going to, let's say, Texas or wherever you want, and meeting people from all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's just anticlimactic almost to end up in Amherst, but also like it's no knock on everybody who wants to
Oh
stay
yeah, yeah,
local, because it's just, me and you, we like that. But a lot of people like really enjoy that comfort, and they love New England. They don't want to leave New England. For me, yeah, I'd like to go. I really do like New England though. So I'd like to, go somewhere for
hmm
college, maybe a postgraduate school somewhere else, and then stay in the city for a couple years, and maybe come back to New England to settle down.
yeah. I mean, no knock to the New England schools, obviously, because they're all great. It's just kind of like the other features about it, like we said, the size, the location, and all that kind of stuff. Um,
How did you get yourself to ASU?
oh, um, good, good, good job asking the question because I was running out of questions here. So I know a kid, Gannon. If he's watching this, shout out Gannon. I met him at sports broadcasting camp, which is obviously like along the lines of the major I'm going to, sports journalism. And the camp was actually in Boston, but he's from Vegas originally, which is, there was a lot of connecting the dots there. But um, so he's out there. He's a sophomore right now in ASU. And last semester, or the spring junior year before Corona, I really didn't know where I was headed, like in a direction for the college process. I was like, I could go to Penn State or like apply to Penn State because my mom went there. That's what I'm familiar with. Maybe a school around here. And then Gannon was like, "Oh, you should definitely come out like whenever you can to tour ASU." So we did February break, like literally a month before Corona. Like God bless, because if we scheduled that for like spring break in April, like it wouldn't have happened. And then I kind of just went out there, and kind of like you and Austin, I like fell in love the minute I got there, and it was kind of like a no brainer choice once I got back. So yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Like, also, you being so passionate about sports journalism is really cool. Obviously, sports, but also there's a whole nother aspect to it when you have to write about it, research, and everything. So
yeah.
that's real. I hope it takes you pretty far.
I hope so too. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of schools out there that provide great journalism, but ASU had like was very specific with like sports journalism. Like
Right.
it was very like specific, very niche, and that was something I was very um like interested in, like grabbed my eye more than these more standard journalism major schools. Um
What's your kind of dream job, almost like a beat writer for a major sports team, or where do you want to go with it?
I mean, that's a fully loaded question. I think I would I would take that job in a heartbeat. I'm not gonna. I would never like be like picky for a job because obviously there's a lot of jobs in this field, but it's very competitive as well. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I could definitely see myself doing some form of radio. Obviously, I don't really want to do on camera work. I don't think I have the face for that personally. But radio would be cool. Obviously I've done writing in the past. I think that's definitely an avenue I could go down. But I think what like draws me so much to the major in the field is it's so versatile. Like there's so many different jobs out there. It's not like I'm going like into a major where it's like, oh, you can only get this job. You're sitting at a cubicle 9 to 5. Like as you said, beat writer, um, radio, TV, writing, recording, all that stuff. So yeah, but
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you a little anecdote. Like I know, I mean, I don't know as much as you, but I know a little bit about the space just because my listening to podcasts, and um, the person who does play by play announcing for the Wizards right now, like he's had a really weird journey, and I've learned that it's like all about connections, and it's really one experience can just shoot you ahead. He was just doing some behind the scenes work for I think it was CBS, and then an opening came for him to do a play by play for a minor league baseball game, and someone couldn't do it, so they're like, hey, next man up, are you good to go? So he studied it up real quick. He's ended up calling that season, and then he, moved around a couple minor league teams, started writing for DC, and they fired the longtime play-by-play caller, and they looked at his experience and they were just like, "Yeah, you're in." And for him, he said it was just all about a couple connections that got him to the very top.
yeah, um, that's actually like very true. Like I can kind of touch on that as well. I heard I forget my I forget where I heard it, but like it's kind of like the saying like you're only a couple handshakes away from like the certain job you want. Um, and obviously I saw at ASU like the connections they have there. Obviously there's 4 major sports teams out there in Phoenix. So like who knows? You could just like walking on the street one day and like connect with someone, or maybe you get a job leads to another job. Like there's no specific way to network, and that's what is kind of amazing about it. But yeah, that's an awesome story about the Wizards play-by-play guy. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I would love to see you calling some Wizards game in 20
I'll be calling John Wall Jr.
years.
He dropping 40 on the Celtics.
Ace.
Um,
Isn't that a dope name for a song?
that,
Ace.
is that his son's name?
Yeah.
Ace Wall. I could see that him being in the NBA. Ace Wall. Um, all right. Enough about me though. I'm just gonna spin that question on you. What would your dream job be?
Oh man, I don't. It's a tough one to answer because I would say, yeah, I really enjoy like just business being, but I enjoy the creative side of business. So I did this program in my sophomore year. It was called Thai Young Entrepreneurs, and it was kind of a year-long thing. I would go every other Saturday to Boston, and it was you basically where you're with a team and you've got the startup that you work on throughout the year. It's like every aspect of the business, the marketing, who's your customer, everything. So I learned a lot about that. And there was a competition at the end. So you pitch your business kind of like a Shark Tank pitch. And we ended up winning $5,000 and then going to the global competition, those teams from India, those teams from China, everywhere. And so that was really cool. So I think like I'd like to come out, just, test the waters. And kind of like you said, like it's hard to picture like where you're going to go because it's just one little conversation can put you somewhere. But I think the goal for me is to start something on my own, kind of do my own thing, be able to be creative and do something I'm passionate about. So maybe starting a business one day.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't hear that story. You going to the globals and winning that money. That's actually sick. Was that through WA?
No, that was something I was just trying to find. So I did DECA that year, and with DECA, I everything before that kind of felt like a chore to me. Like I would do speech and debate club, and I was like I didn't really want to go there, but I was like, I guess this is what I'm doing. Like I guess this was my strength. And then I did DECA, and I really enjoyed it. And I ended up going to nationals that first year, and I just like fully buy into it. So during DECA, you do role plays. So you're given a scenario, you have 10 minutes to prep, and then you're out there pretending you're in that role talking to the judge, and they see just what are your solutions. And I went to nationals, and it was in Orlando, and I love doing the role plays, but it was also super fun. So I was trying to find, what else is kind of business oriented, and I found this program. It's in Boston, and they do it in like every major city, and then they come together to compete. So I did that. It was year long, and after that, I was pretty much like, yeah, this is kind of what I want to do.
Oh, that's pretty dope. I mean, like we said, obviously, like just connecting the dots, you found this one thing. It led you to, obviously going to globals like just like that, and like kind of making that connection outside of WA too, like kind of going off like on your own from your original interest in DECA. I can kind of add to that as in, so I did journalism, which for the Ghostwriter freshman year, with the intent that I was just gonna write sports, like I was gonna be the sports guy. And then the teacher was like, "No, you gotta like write about everything." And so I actually ended up me being the sports journalism major soon to be. I had a 77 in that class, the journalism class, because it just like you said about speech and debate. I just didn't want to be there really, like, which kind of like messed with my head a little bit. Was like I thought this is what I wanted to do, and clearly it's not what I thought it would be. But obviously down the line, kind of like you did, I went out and I found Ride the Wave, and I started writing for them, and then things kind of just went down a different or took off in a way, which is actually very similar to your story in a way, which is awesome. Um, so besides in the like the business field, besides a job, working on your profession, what do you see yourself doing in the future? Like maybe in the form of like a hobby or a different interest, like away from just working.
That's tough. I guess I guess I don't know what my interests will be. They change all the time. Every couple of years you find something new. Um, I'm always going to be a big sports guy. So
Yeah.
I think, well, I'll tell you once I'm out of college, kind of what I want to do is travel around a little bit, go around the country. My family's gone to some places, so I guess I could see myself living in DC just because it's a great city. Um, Aside from the fact that that's where the Wizards play, it's a beautiful city. Some other places, I have a ton of family down in Texas, and there's Houston, Dallas, everything there. So I'd like to stay there for a bit. Boise, Idaho sounds pretty boring, but I went there and it was really cool. They have this it's like desert, and then it's also snowy,
Yeah,
and there's
yeah.
so much to do out there. So kind of travel around, and then I guess once get a dog for sure. Yeah,
Would you ever consider studying abroad when you're in college?
yeah, definitely. That's one of my goals. I my family takes vacations, but we always end up going somewhere tropical. So I've never been to Europe. I'm
Oh, I
taking
see.
Spanish right now, so Spain would be amazing. Also, Japan. Yeah, there's a lot of places I want to go.
Yeah, that's dope. Actually, like the only time I've been out of the country is I was visiting my sister who was studying abroad in London, and when we went to see her, it's like, damn, she's really like in school right now. Like the things we were doing is like, I can't believe she's actually like taking classes. And
Yeah,
like this counts. Like it's not like it's like off the record. Like this actually counts for something like your college experience, and you get the travel, which is amazing. Like you said, there's so many like unexplored parts of the country that we haven't seen yet because obviously being kids you're kind of limited to vacations and wherever your family takes you. So
Yeah,
that's
you
also
really know, like you really do so little, then you don't realize it. Um, like life is all about the experiences you make, and everyone I've talked to that done study abroad say, "Oh, that like might be the best thing I've done in my entire life," you know. So that would be amazing, and I'll say like I totally agree. Like you just put yourself out there, and that's what like sticks with you. If like when I look back on this year, I did a Boy Scout trip, and we went to Minnesota, and we basically were on the water canoeing across those like the Great Lake type of area. There's just so many lakes out there. So, we took off, canoed. Everything you need is in the canoe. You would get, you would go all day, stop for lunch. And it was so cool to just like, we left our phones. You're just surrounded by nature. And it's the most like, it's so like, so much serenity around you. And you're completely removed from society. So I think just making those type of things, like putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, is what makes those type of experiences special.
yeah, definitely. I think touching on getting outside of your comfort zone is kind of like the main message of this pod so far. Speaking of Boy Scouts, I feel like that's kind of the one stone we haven't flipped over yet. Um, Obviously, being friends with you and Carter and a lot of the other boys who are in Boy Scouts, I hear about it a lot, and it sounds like a great time. So do you want to explain, like, obviously you just explained like just a tiny piece of Boy Scouts. Do you want to explain like your time in Scouts and all of that?
Yeah. When you first hear Boy Scouts, like I'm sure everybody's thought is like some rednecks, going on some camping trips, making a fire, tying some knots and everything. But that's like a small part of it. Like I'd say the two things are experiences and relationships that I've gotten out of it. Cause like some of my closest friends, we have a little friend group that comes straight from there, and it brings like all these different people together because there's a couple people that are older than me, a couple people that are younger that I would have never met. I don't think I would be friends with Carter maybe even if it wasn't for that. And it kind of forces you to find your group there because every Thursday we would meet. um, then every month you've got a camping trip, so you're just spending a lot of time with these people, and the experiences are really cool. Like there's these things called high adventures, and that's what the trip to Minnesota was. uh, the other ones are like you can go to Nevada, and there you're out there, it's called Philmont, you're just backpacking for like 2 weeks. um, the other ones, there's one in Florida, you're just sailing for a week, and they're just super like special experiences. And then every summer we've got summer camp where there's a ton of activities. There's a waterfront area, there's a sports area, and so it's like full of tradition, full of experiences and new relationships. So I'd say if anything, like in my life, like that's probably shaped me the most and changed my life the most, because my friend group, my like close friends, and what I could say I've done throughout my life would be completely different if I didn't do Boy Scouts.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I could go back, I'd probably join Boy Scouts just from like what I've heard. It's such a unique experience that you kind of can't recreate anywhere else. Obviously, the connections you said, and then the trips, and all those different experiences. I actually did Cub Scouts, and obviously, being that young, it's kind of hard to make a decision. Because when do you start Boy Scouts? Like, when do you first?
So you go in right after, like right as middle school starting, fifth to sixth grade is when you transition.
So yeah, it's kind of tough because I didn't like I based my Cub Scout experience off like the friends I had in there, and it was off like kids I already like. I didn't venture out and to make new friends. I was like, oh, I don't know anyone here, so I'm just gonna leave and not join Boy Scouts. Which obviously making that decision as a fifth grader is a lot different than you know your mindset as a 12th grader now.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what I was getting to. Cub Scouts is really parent led. You kind of just show up and
Yeah, exactly.
do a couple things, but I also my brother did it, so I kind of just joined the same troop he did, and I was in the same Cub Scout crew as Siraj, so I had friends there, and I was excited to join Boy Scouts.
Yeah. So going off, maybe going back and making different decisions, like I said, um, with our time at WA or just in Westford schools as a whole, I'm gonna give you a packed question here. What would maybe one thing or a couple things, if you want, would you go back and change?
Hmm, really, really got me. I'd say kind of a mindset, because coming in, middle school is brutal. Everybody
Yeah,
knows that.
I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah, and you do so much to try to like portray yourself in a certain way, and most of the time you end up overthinking things. If it's whether it be social or about classes or anything, like you put too much weight on yourself, like you put too much pressure on yourself to like be a certain way, to be friends with certain people, all that type of stuff. Middle school is that way. You come into high school with even more pressure like that. You're like, this is high school, got to establish yourself. um, and you're always trying to do too much and not appreciating like what you got. And I'd say like come senior year, I've like fully grown to that, is like kind of left that behind and just do like what makes you happy, kind of go for those experiences that you question, that pushes you out of your comfort zone. And it's really easy to talk about, but doing it is what I want to do in college, like put myself out there.
Yeah, that was uh, said perfectly. I think I can agree with that. Like, there's so much pressure to like appeal to your classmates, and because you want to be friends with everybody, you want to be like the quote unquote cool kid when you're in middle school and even like to start high school in some aspects. I kind of touched on it in my college essay where in fifth grade and the beginning of middle school, I thought the cool kids were like, I thought you were a cool kid based off like if you played travel basketball, if you played on the Stony Brook basketball team. And I tried so hard. Well, no, I didn't really try so hard, but I wanted to be them. Like really, like I wanted to be a travel basketball player. I wanted to play basketball, and it just didn't really work out. I felt kind of like left behind because I was trying to be something that I'm not. Um, and then we fast forward to high school. Obviously, I find this like sort of passion in sports journalism, and like I start writing. I mean, we're doing a freaking podcast right now. Like, I would never do this like 5 years ago. Like, if what like 12-year-old, 13-year-old me told me I would do this, I'd be like, nah, no way, because it's all about like just going after what you want, not what others want. And in the end, doing that for yourself will end up giving you just like more happiness, and in the long run, probably like more friends, like socially, like we said, going to those sporting events, like that was kind of like a hype thing for me, and that's kind of how I made connections with people, like fun moments. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the best things, like the things you remember most and the things you appreciate most, like there's always like a little comfort zone that you have to get out of. And you almost like, you like never, at least in my experience, like you never regret doing these things. Because at the worst, you'll be like, I just won't do it again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we can both like speak from experience because like I was very quiet. I mean, I'm still like pretty quiet, but like I was way more quiet in middle school. You're like you talk a lot more than you did in middle school. I feel like that's how a lot of people are, but obviously now we're more like into what like we kind of know like what we are in a way, and
Yeah.
like we're proud of that. We're not or we're growing into being proud of that, and we're just trying to find out more about ourselves rather than finding out what we need to do to appeal to others.
Yeah. One little story about that is like art. Like I've done art since I was in elementary school. I would go to this art teacher after school, and I just always did that. And then obviously, freshman year comes, everybody does art to fill the requirement. And then I've been doing art every year. And right now I'm in AP art, and kind of like that sophomore year type area where I was in a higher level art class, I was like surrounded by new people, and like it's embarrassing. It's not embarrassing, but it's just like kind of sad to say now. Like I was like embarrassed by it, you know? Like it's like, oh,
Yeah,
like is this like this not like cool? Like doing art's not cool. Like maybe I should do something else. Like, but right now, like I'm sure a lot of people like know that I do art because I won class artist. So it kind of feels like now I can be like proud of that. So it's kind of that transition from like appealing to others to doing what you like. And in the end, like you'll always be happy with your decision.
yeah, exactly. Like just going for it is half the battle. Obviously, kind of like a transition for me was uh the Spirit Rally in a way last year. Um, Signing up for an event and then obviously getting the crowd hype. I wouldn't like
Oh yeah.
I would have never done that freshman year, or just going to the student section and yelling during a free throw. Like freshman year, I was probably in the student section freshman year. I was like, I'm not gonna yell. People are gonna look at me weird. Like that's just half the battle is I'm gonna do it, and who cares what people think.
And once you embrace it, like people notice because you got school spirit, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
like people notice, and like it's not in a bad way. Like you're known for that, and it's in a good light. Like I remember at one of the basketball games, you would just yell during the free throws, and everybody's looking at you, but like who cares?
Yeah. And I mean, same with you with class artists. Like people take notice, and it didn't do any harm. Like if anything, it does for the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so yeah, I'm kind of I didn't prepare for questions because I just wanted this to be free form. I'm kind of running off the dome here. Um, is
Yeah,
there
no,
anything?
it was a good conversation. Started off with
Yeah,
basketball, ended up here.
we kind of went full circle, well in a way. If we like,
Yeah.
it was a good transition. I feel like. Is there anything you want to talk about
I don't know. I think
for
we
the
touched on
viewers?
everything. If you
Yeah,
stayed this long, I'm impressed.
yeah. If you
Thank you.
if you listen to the pod for this long, would appreciate you. You're a day one.
Hopefully, you were able to get through the basketball section. Hopefully, you didn't click off after that.
Yeah, there were some people were like, "Man, this is just another
Man, I don't
Washington.
want to hear this shit. I don't want to
This
hear the bitch talk about the Wizards.
is just another Wizards pod in disguise. I'm clicking off." Nah,
Yeah, you should put a little disclaimer at the beginning. We just start off with basketball and we get into the good stuff after.
put a timestamp like click off this
If you
if you
don't
don't.
want to hear him ramble about the Wizards, you can click
Yeah,
here.
exactly. So how long do you think we've been going? Probably like
I have no clue.
me neither.
Maybe half hour,
Maybe
maybe
I.
longer.
It's been a solid convo, so I feel like this is a good point. We can kind of cap this off. One last thing before we go. Obviously, senior year, this is our last hurrah. What do you want to say to, how should I word this? What is your kind of like final word that you want to leave to maybe, let's say if a underclassman was listening to this or like an eighth grader was listening to this, like what would your advice in a way be to them, I guess?
Yeah, I kind of go back. I'm glad we talked about that change in mindset that we had. And I think it's a really natural process. Like everybody has to go through it, and it happens at your own time. Your own experience will dictate when you kind of start thinking in a different way. But if you're, you know, trying to do new things, just don't pass up on something that you want to do, even if it's gonna make you feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. Like, don't pass up on it. Take those opportunities because you really will, like, at the end, be happy you did it. And it can make you discover a whole like new part about yourself. Like you never know where it'll take you. But if you just keep doing the same thing every day, every year, you're never gonna like learn about yourself. So just don't pass up on those like once in a lifetime almost opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect way to end it. Mic drop right there. So, Divij, I want to thank you again for being numero uno on the
Thank you for having me.
Ghost Files pod. Do you want to like plug your Instagram or anything before we sign off?
I'm honored you had me as the first guest. Um, I don't need to plug anything.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So that would do it. For the Ghost Files pod, I'm Dan Allison, and thanks for listening.